So Peg, how did your mother and father meet each other? Do you know that?
That's funny, I was just thinking of that. You know, years ago, I think, Rick, from what my mother said, they used to have a dance school in Auburn, and all the older people of her age group, you know, they used to go there. And that's where I think she met him.
Mm-hmm.
And she lived on Elizabeth Street.
Okay.
And she lived here with her aunt, the one that lived in eventually ended up in California. And I was thinking about it the other day, and I was laughing when she told me they were married at 6 o'clock in the morning, because my father, talk about Dick being not speaking in front of people, he didn't want the whole police force there, so he arranged to get married at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we?
Yeah, we're recording. So how did that happen? What was his concern?
He didn't want the police force there. He didn't like this notoriety, everybody making a big fuss over him. So she agreed to it, so they did it.
So they got married.
6 o'clock in the morning.
So people wouldn't,
Police officers wouldn't come in. All the crowd, the whole police force there.
Wow.
So, anyways, but that's the only way I think they met through individual people, you know.
Interesting.
What did she wear, Peg?
She wore a suit. And I know I wore the gloves for them for years. They came up to here, you know, they were kid gloves. And in fact, they wouldn't go on my hands because their hands are smaller than mine.
The outfit was in the attic on Hamilton Avenue, wasn't it? Didn't we go up and look in the trunk?
Yeah, she had a lot of, she had stuff up there. She still had these gloves anyways. I know.
And her waist was so small.
About this big, the leather belt. Remember the leather belt?
Yes.
And it made the gloves, and it just went around. Oh my God, it was only this big.
And what was she doing when he met her?
Well, the only thing I can think of, Pat, is she worked for C.G. Meeker for years. There was a grocery store in Auburn. Meeker had about 6 stores in Auburn, you know. And she was working there when she was married. Because I know she had some gifts. Mrs. Meeker went to California. She brought her back gifts and things like that, you know. And
then she had a room in Auburn?
She lived on the corner of Elizabeth and Mary Street. A big house there. And Carrie, what was her name? Carrie Nation, no, Carrie something. She was a very dear friend, and she owned the house. And my mother and her aunt Ann, the one that she lived with, they went to. She was married from her house that time, and she was Gigi's godmother. That Carrie was too. I can't remember her last name now, but.
So she was like a boarder in that house.
Yes. So, and then Aunt, well, the ones in the pictures there, Ann, she went to California because she had a brother out there, and he wasn't married, and she thought he needed somebody to take care of him, so she died in California eventually.
Now, who was that?
It was the woman my mother lived with.
Oh, okay.
Ann, yeah. See, her mother lived in Red Creek, and that's why I always thought she came from Red Creek, and I suppose she did. I don't know, but. Her mother married again because there was a man in the picture. I don't know where he came from.
Oh, okay.
But or whether he just boarded with the mother in Red Creek, I don't know, you know.
So Aha's mother remarried.
I don't know whether she did or not, you know, whether this was just a man that boarded there, you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
Like what the kids do now, they board together, you know, for years. Nothing new.
So are you trying to say that one of our ancestors was boarding?
Not promiscuous, but
because
boarding.
I remember seeing him, but I didn't know what capacity he played. I know I wasn't a grandfather, and I don't know what capacity he played in the picture.
So that's interesting. She left her mother and went to live with Aunt Ann.
And she lived with Ann, yeah.
And worked.
And she stayed with Ann until Ann died, and so, or until Ann went to California. That was after my mother was married. So that's as far as I got there, but I know she was married at 6 o'clock in the morning, that's all I remember.
Do you remember how old she was, Peg, when she was married?
She had no idea how old she was.
She was born in 1880.
She was born the same year my father was, 1880. And he was born in 1910.
So she would have been
30.
30?
Must have been.
Really? Oh,
Well,
my.
she must have been because
Yeah, it seems to me that she was older when she got married. Where did I get that idea? I mean, she wasn't a
I
19-year-old or anything.
Well, I know that Dee Dee was born in 1910, so my mother had been 30 years old then.
And our grandfather was living at home taking care of his mother at the time. Grandma Corcoran.
Who was my father?
Yeah.
Yeah, my father was.
Okay.
Yes.
And so after Aha and Grandma were married, then he took her right home to Parker Street.
Well, that was his understanding that when he got married, he'd stay and take care of his mother.
Yeah,
so.
that's interesting, isn't it?
That was the deal.
Yeah.
That was the deal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Marry me, you got my
Big-
mother too.
Mm-hmm.
Because he said he was the last one and he couldn't leave her there alone, so that they would stay there. But of course, it was rough on my mother because she had all the pressures and the dopey family.
Mm-hmm.
But Will had already gone to college then, right?
Uncle Will graduated from Holy Cross, so yeah, he was.
But when they were married, he didn't still live in the house, right?
No, but he used to come home, pay. He was our guest. We used to have to put the good silver out when he came, and all that stuff, because he was a college boy.
But actually, that was his house, right?
Yes, right.
Like he had his own bedroom and everything.
But he'd gone to 4 years. He was gone for 4 years,
Oh.
Then he came back, and then of course my father had Uncle Jimmy in Syracuse,
Uh-huh.
and. When I think of it now, of course, I didn't appreciate it all then, because you're young. But when I think back on it, it's really funny. My Uncle Jimmy would drive up. He didn't come to our house, when my father was there, because my father was a policeman. He was a rum runner. So,
That's the story we want.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, he'd drive up in this long black car with a chauffeur-driven car. Uncle Jimmy would like 10 o'clock in the morning when Dad had gone to work. So he wasn't around. And he'd pick my grandmother up, take her to Syracuse and show her the town for the day, and bring her back before my father got home at night.
Oh.
She thought she was Miss America. She thought she was Princess Diane.
Oh.
She'd sit up in that car like this, and here she's being chauffeured around.
But nobody would tell your father, right? But nobody would tell your father that this had been going on. Huh?
No. You didn't even mention his name in our house,
Oh.
And then one day my mother gets a call, Ricky, from the federal agents, telling him that they were going to hijack his shipment down in there, Syracuse, on the river, on the canal. So my mother takes a bus and goes to Syracuse and warns them. And of course, my father didn't know this girl. Anyway, there was a friend of my father's that didn't want this to happen, So she went to Syracuse. I remember Uncle Jimmy lived on Seymour Street in Syracuse, and she went there. And from then on, she was Miss America with Jimmy, because he thought she was the most wonderful thing that ever happened.
Oh.
So he warned him, not to bring it in because they were waiting for him. And so, she had a lot of funny things she did, because she had a lot more courage than I would have had.
Mm-hmm. So she was actually helping her brother-in-law, right?
Yes, but of course he was my father's favorite brother.
The thing I remember too about Aha was always taking out insurance policies on everybody.
Oh yeah.
All the kids, on me, Buzzy, the whole thing. But anyway, she had one on Uncle Jimmy.
Yeah.
And later on in years, she'd read the Post-Standard every day, waiting for his obituary.
Right, I remember.
So she could collect the money. And I can remember asking her.
10-cent policy, she paid up 10 cents every week,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And finally he died and she collected.
And she collected it.
Probably $50.
Yeah, she probably put $50 out of it. But I always remember he was beholden to her for warning him about the federal boys.
So now I see Ada and Richard were married in 1910, you said.
1910 was it? Was that
Or you said Dee Dee was
Dee Dee
born.
was born.
Okay, Dee Dee was born in 1910.
Yeah.
And then along comes Richard II,
Yes.
and that was 1911.
11, he was born. There's only,
Okay, that's our father. And then along comes Francie,
and he was 15.
1915, and then you were born.
There was only a year, a little year and a couple of days between Dee Dee and Dick. I mean, a couple of months.
Yeah.
And there's only 14 months between Francie and I.
Yeah. But now, Peg, did you tell me, or did Mother tell me, that when Aha was pregnant, that she wouldn't go out of the yard? I mean, she'd walk around the backyard, but she didn't want anybody to see her?
She probably did. Yeah, she was a very independent person.
Isn't that funny?
Isn't it?
Oh my gosh. So you guys were little steps then.
Yeah, well, Francie and I, well, in the pictures you can see there's only
Yes.
this much between us, you know,
Yeah.
the size.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But, so that was, and Dee Dee was in 10, Dick was 11, that's right.
Now, did Minnie live down the street from you?
Pardon?
Minnie and...
No, Aunt Minnie lived up where she lives now. Up in the corner of Fish Avenue, right opposite Parker Street, you know.
Oh, okay.
And she was there
Yeah.
as long as I can remember.
Well, that wasn't too far from where
No,
you
no,
were, just
no.
around the corner.
Yeah.
Now, did she come over all the time to see her mother?
No, good Lord, no. You had to do something when she came over, and she
Oh.
didn't want to get into that.
Wow.
She married a businessman. Uncle Phil had a store, and they put him on an echelon above everybody else.
Oh.
He wasn't that way though. He was a doll. He was a sweetheart. But I mean, I put them socially, like the first people in the neighborhood to have a radio. I can remember it so well. They had this huge radio, and they put it out on the front porch because the Dempsey-Tunney fight was going to be on that night. And everybody in the Ninth Ward came and sat in their front yard to hear because they were the only ones that had a radio. And so they, until your father went out in Baldwin.
Oh, did he? He brought the radio?
Oh, he bought the first and he and my father almost ended up with it. And my father didn't want him to buy it, and Dick, he had a job, and he went out and he bought this great big radio. And who listened to him no more than my father did.
And I can remember it'd be One Man's Family.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
right.
Fibber McGee and Molly was Sunday night, I think, and we'd all gather around.
And they had the ball games on, Rick, and then they put on the cigarette ads, you remember? You know, my father gets so mad. God damn it, why do they have to do that? I mean, I said, that's what's paying for your radio.
And he smoked one cigarette after another, Camels.
Yeah, right,
Remember?
right.
Always smoked, and then died of lung cancer.
So would you go over to Minnie's house and, visit them?
Oh, yeah, we used to go up there. I lived with Aunt Minnie and Uncle Phil were my godparents.
Oh.
So we used to go up, but Aunt Minnie only when she wanted something did she ever come down, But they weren't ones to come down and take Grandma for the day, and entertain her or anything like that. It wasn't what she do. Song somebody else, because that's when Carolyn came, I told you, Carolyn from Rochester came to the funeral, and she said, I always prayed your mother be out of this situation and have a few years before she died. She didn't work.
Wow.
But
so now, when you went over there Catherine was older than you were.
Oh, yeah, she's 10 years older than I am.
Oh.
And Catherine and Helen were the younger ones up there. But we always traded with their stores, see, because they had the grocery store.
Oh, so that's where you'd go shopping?
Yeah, that's where we shopped, And Uncle Phil, he was a real nice guy. But he was a fourth degree knight, and he wear all the paraphernalia, and all that business. And so, I think socially Aunt Minnie liked that life a little better.
Right.
She was a nice person. She couldn't do too much for herself, and she didn't depend on other people. Of course, she had those three boys that were howlers, Bill and Phil and
Tom.
They liked the battle, and every Sunday morning, picked up the paper. We were going to see one of the Lions is in the paper. So they went through with the big store window one Saturday night, and there was all of it. And of course, my father was a policeman, and he was mortified because they were his nephews,
Wow.
Oh, they were something else.
Oh, really?
They smashed up more cars probably than.
And then you had Catherine and Helen that were as sweet as sugar, huh?
Yeah, right.
Oh, my goodness.
Then Catherine married an attorney, and that was great.
Oh.
Then they were really a cut above the rest of us.
But Catherine was really good to them. I mean, she was
good to everybody.
She was a good person.
And the good news is that Ann Landers, her daughter, is so good to you, Peg.
Yes, Ann's been very good to me. Yes, she
she's
has.
been more.
She just keeps going all the time.
She's amazing, and she's not well, but she thrives on.
She's just like Catherine. She's just like her.
Full of energy.
Yeah.
Was Dad close to the lines?
Very close. Oh, Catherine and your father were like this. They always were.
So Catherine Lyons Smith
They are.
Right.
is the one who was very close to Dad.
Yes.
Yes, Catherine was
Ann's
very
mother.
close to Dick.
Okay.
And an interesting thing about Catherine Lyons was when Dad was running for councilman or whatever it was in Auburn, I was in Corning with lots of little kids and out of it. I didn't know what was going on. And Catherine Smith sat down several times and wrote to me to tell me what was going on in Auburn with Dad.
Oh.
And that was the only way I knew that they were having parties down at the restaurant for Dad, and he was a hero, and you know, the Tricky Dicky business and all that.
And she would
stuff.
do that.
And she would write to me and tell me, and I was like, oh, you know, how nice. Because I might as well have been dead in Corning at that time, you know, as far as Auburn was concerned.
So Catherine and Dad were close growing up, or was it close in later life?
No, they were close growing up, and I know when Jeannie was born, I can see her now. She had an old Model T car, Ford, you know, and Charlotte, she was in sick. She was in bed, and Catherine used to take the baby and go out with Dick to show the baby off. I remember, yes, and yeah, that's why she always made a deal out of you.
She did. She always remembered my birthday, and I could never figure out why, except that she was married on my birthday, I think.
Yeah, she was the first of, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
the first of October.
Yeah.
But Catherine she was a good person. Now Helen was a little different. Helen wasn't so, you know, but Catherine was always.
Another nice thing about that family that I remember is every time there was a death in the family, you never worried, because in the kitchen would be Catherine Smith, Mill Lyons,
Right.
and Helen too, probably, right? But Catherine and Mill would put on all the food and everything would be done. Remember?
Yeah, they were great.
Always.
And I know the morning my mother died, who do I call? Catherine. Well, because the Robbie was home with the flu from school, and I wanted to go to the hospital to see what was going on over there. And so I called Catherine. I said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I need you right here." So she was over in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
And she stayed while I went to the hospital. But
Such a good person.
she was a good soul. She wanted anything, you know, if you needed something cooked or baked or anything, she'd do it. But Frank wasn't nice. Frank was good to me, but most people didn't like him.
Yeah. Remember how she used to play the piano?
Yes, she was. Yeah, right, Patty.
And then she got. That's how come I went to Camp Columbus. Was Catherine?
Right.
Remember every summer we'd go to Camp
Oh,
Columbus.
yes. Right.
With Peggy and me and Kathy Clancy
Right.
and a couple of times we brought another girl from Liberty up with us to go to Camp
Yeah,
Columbus.
right.
And that was all Catherine's.
Those are the good old days.
Yeah, for $16 a week. We
Okay.
went to Camp Columbus. It was so nice. And then the Impaglias just lived down the street, and they were always real close, weren't they?
Yeah.
The Impaglias.
You mean the
Well, the Paglers, they
Fosters.
were related to the Lionses. They weren't related to us, but they were related to the Lionses.
To the Lionses, yeah.
And so it was Kay Foster, you
Kate
know.
Foster, right.
And when Rock was going to marry Kay, we all, you know, said, he's an Italian.
Our grandfather used to say, he's a
Hightail.
Never said
Hightail.
Italian.
And Minnie used to always say, they're Catholics.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal when she married an Italian. Huh?
Yeah, right. You know, and I mean, when she was Kay was going to marry Rock, you know, it was so funny because I thought, oh my God, this will never go over. She had 10 kids, Rick. But and she looks wonderful. She looked like she did 20 years ago.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, she still plays golf. She goes to Hilton Head and plays her golf, and you know she's over the 90 now, so
Isn't that great?
she looks good.
And it was her father that was the warden of the prison.
He
right?
was the
That we
prison.
talked
He was the
about
warden.
Jack Frost.
that got hurt during the riots.
Yep, he was a warden.
And the Fosters lived down the street on Fitch Avenue, and they had a dollhouse.
Yeah, Jackie built, yeah.
And Jack, the warden, built this dollhouse for
Kay
Foster and her sister
Mary.
And I used to go there and play, and I thought that was the end.
I did too, because Mary and I were little,
Yeah.
and he built it when Mary was little, and then he continued. And we used to play this playhouse, electricity and everything. You know?
Yeah, you could walk, and it was
wow.
like a little house.
Yeah. Actually, people used to build playhouses
Oh,
that
yes.
you don't see anymore.
You don't ever see them, do you?
No, because in Liberty we had a neighbor
Did you
with
really?
a playhouse with electricity inside and just like a little mini house.
Yeah, the
And
regular
kids
house
would
with
go
little
hang out
shelves and
there.
other things, you know. We used to go up there.
Yeah. So that's curious.
It's funny how the kids, though. I mean, like we're talking here now. There's so many things that they don't know either. Because I know, Case, we were talking one day. How come that Aunt Frances never lived with her father? You know, Aunt Minnie was her stepmother. You see,
Okay, now say that again.
Aunt Frances, who was Kay's mother, Kay and Mary's mother and mother.
Yeah, Frances.
Frances
Yeah.
Foster.
So she was my Uncle Phil's first wife. Her mother was.
Oh.
Her mother was. She died in childbirth.
Oh.
And then he married my Aunt Minnie later on, so they were really half sisters and brothers, you know what I mean?
And who raised her then?
Pardon?
Who raised her?
Well, so and when this is my mother told me when Francis's mother died down there, she had these 3 maiden aunts, 2 of them, Maggie and Rosie. They never married, you know, so they were. And then she had another one that. They all lived, but the 3 of them lived together. And so they took over Frances after her mother died. And so she really never came up to 68 until after Uncle Phil married. They were still friends and everything, you know, but of course the aunts wanted to keep her, and so they did.
And I remember Aunt Maggie.
Maggie was down at the store, remember?
Yeah, and then being up at Foster's camp.
Oh yeah, on the west.
Yeah, and she was very elderly, but she
Oh.
was living with.
No, she worked at Uncle Phil's store. There's her brother. He would be her brother, and she was only about this high, and she worked there for years until she died.
Oh yeah.
So it looks like in those days, if a woman died in childbirth, usually the baby went to her siblings.
Yeah, I think somebody took over for her, you know.
Because like with Mariana, you
I
said
guess it was
that she
Buzzy or
went to
somebody
her-
saying, how come that Aunt Frances stayed down at 58 and they lived at 68, Uncle Phil did. And I said, well, it's probably because they wouldn't give her up. I said, after her mother died and they took care of her.
Wow.
So,
Men in those days didn't hang on to their children.
but see, then we became very close because Frances was your father's godmother.
Oh, okay.
Frances Foster.
She was Dick's godmother.
Oh my.
So we were close to Frances, you know what I mean?
But as kids, wasn't that confusing that She doesn't live with her mother and father?
I don't think anybody thought anything of it because it's a neighborhood thing where everybody knows everybody's business, Pat. And so probably because they thought, well, they're not going to take their baby away from those people, are they? That's because she married somebody else.
But at least nobody in the Corcoran family had to send their kids to an orphanage, right? Everybody kept the kids.
Yeah, they all kept. I don't think we had any children in orphanages, did we?
Not like Mother's family where kids went to orphanages, but not in your family.
Yeah, the only ones I knew were the Burns kids.
Yeah, from Mother's family.
Yeah.
They went to the orphanage. Wow. So now Buzzy's father, Lyons,
Bill
Lyons.
Yes.
Now,
He was only 52 or 53 when he died. He was young.
Okay. So he was a good friend of Dad's too.
Yes, he was, Only I think he drove your father crazy because he used to drink quite a bit,
Oh, okay. They continued to drink.
Yeah, they could continue to
Okay.
drink.
And I don't think you've told the story of how you got a hold of Buzzy, have we?
No, we haven't done that one.
Okay.
Buzzy?
I know you've told it a million times, but little Charlotte won't have heard this story. How?
Poor Charlotte will be so confused. God love her. She'll throw her hands up. They can't possibly be.
Okay, so we know that Buzzy's father was Bill Lyons.
Worked at the prison.
Okay, so, and then they had the two children, Rhodey and Buzzy.
Yes.
Two girls.
Yes.
Okay. And then what happened that this family got all split up?
Well, the reason they got split up was because when Buzz was about 5 months old, 3 months old, something along in there, she had whooping cough, and her mother got it from her, and somebody had she couldn't take care of her, and so Aunt Minnie took Rhodey, and my mother said she'd take Buzzy, and Buzzy had to. And I remember my mother for weeks, she never even went to bed because she was able to sleep on the cot down in the dining room with the baby next to her because she coughed on the night she choked. And you had to pick her up and get the phlegm out of her throat and all that business. So from then on, from the time she was 10 months old, she lived with us off and on all the time. Then as she grew up, she always came back. And as I said about my father, he had some idiosyncrasies, but one was you kids, he thought anything you did was right because it was all right because you were away from him. It wasn't bothering him. No, but he was very fond of Buzzy, and I mean he used to take her out and walk her up and down out in front because my mother wouldn't let me touch her because she choked. So anyway, I know her birthdays and like that she had at our house after that, and so. That was where we came in contact with Buzzy until her mother got it. Then her mother moved up on Fitch Avenue. And her mother and father did.
And then Peg, tell about how Aha got her name. Why do we call her Aha?
Oh, Buzzy called her Aha. Yeah, Buzzy couldn't say Ada, so she said Aha. So that's where she got the
They were
Aha.
trying to teach Buzz to say Aunt Ada,
Yes,
weren't they?
yeah.
Because she would have been her aunt, and my grandfather would have been her.
Yeah.
So she said Aha.
Aha. So it's always been Aha.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
So was it really hard for Aha when they finally took Buzzy back?
Yes, but at that time, Molly had come down, used to come down every day, and see her and like that and so on and so forth. And then they moved up on the avenue right around the corner, so she was just, up the street. So, but I think she needed a nice sleep, so she
Wow.
she let her go. She was a responsibility because she choked, so you had to be careful she was going to go out on you.
Wow. Well, what happened later when the infamous incident when she ran away from home when she was older? How did that work?
She's funny. She was, you see, as I said, my father liked these kids, and of course she knew she could get around him. And so anyway, she was down at the lake down in Cayuga, and down to Maddie's, calls. And apparently she had a fight with the kids in the neighborhood, so she got mad at him and hit the road, and he's only 7 or 8 years old, So he gets a call, up on Hamilton Avenue saying, has Buzzy shown up around there, we haven't seen her. And I said, no, so For a little while, Buzz arrives on the scene.
Now, how far would this have been from Cayuga to Auburn?
Oh my goodness, 12 miles, isn't it, or something like that?
Were we still on Parker Street then?
No, we were in
We
Hamilton.
were in Hamilton Avenue.
And she
okay.
was, and some man came along and gave her a ride. He said, "Where are you going, little girl?" She told me about it the other night, and she said, "I'm going to my aunt's." And so she says he brought her to the center of the city. Then she came up the house from the center of the city. That's even a long walk, you know.
Yeah.
And but my God, when Bill arrived on the scene, I thought Bill would kill her. I don't blame him. He was right, you know. I got her to take off and pick up. And so she got my father said, "Well, they must have been abusing her. She wouldn't have done it." See, Buzzy was right.
Yeah, Buzz could do no wrong.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
So she heard Buzz appears on the scene, so she was grounded for a long time.
I think a nice other story too is the other end of our grandfather Richard's life when he was upstairs on Hamilton Avenue so ill with lung cancer, and Buzzy was a nurse.
Uh-huh.
And what did she do then, Peg? Do you remember she was in New York at Mount Sinai, I think? And she took time off or quit her job, and she came back to Auburn, and she stayed with Aha, and she took care of Grandma. Do you remember that?
No.
At the near the end, he died in the hospital.
Yeah.
But I'm quite sure she did that.
She used to come and visit him, but I never knew her come to stay. You know, any length of time.
Oh, I thought it was at the very end, but maybe I'm wrong.
So, but as I said, that's where we were about. And of course, we always defended Buzzy against Rhodey too, and that was another thing that was. But
They weren't very close, or what?
Huh?
Rhodey and Buzzy.
well, they were, but they were two different types entirely. Buzzy, and then the thing of it was the Lions is more or less. Rhodey was the first one, so she was a little special to them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so anything that happened to Buzzy was somebody else's fault. Not, I mean, according to my father, it wasn't really. She had a boyfriend, Roswell,
Oh, yeah.
in high school. And as soon as you walk in the door, Dad would say, "Well, how's Roswell doing? Have you got him with you?"
Oh.
So,
And Rhodey was very, very pretty as a child.
she's a very
So pretty that they called her Rosebud.
Oh.
And that's what I called her. When I was little, she was Rosebud. She wasn't Rhodey. Rhodey came later.
And
when she
Rhodey
was
came later.
older.
Mildred, I think, was the one that called her Rosebud.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, I had a letter from Mildred the other day,
Oh,
and Mildred called, and now she was Buzzy's cousin, but she was a dear, dear friend of mine. And I had the nicest surprise. About a month ago, Buzzy stopped one day, and she had Mildred's daughter with her, whom I hadn't seen in, well, she's 30-something now, so it's probably 30 years.
oh my.
And she and her husband, a little girl, and she looked so much like Mildred. I mean, not pretty like Mildred, but she's heavy like Mildred was, But she was a really nice little girl, Lisa. And so I got a letter from Mildred the other day, and Mildred and Bill are moving to Hawaii to live. Because
Oh,
Lisa's husband's been transferred to Hawaii.
wonderful.
So they're all going to go, because they lived in Hawaii at one time years ago, so that they know what it's like to live there, So they're going to Hawaii, and so she's all selling her house and all that in Florida, trying to get ready to go. But see, Rhodey was with the calls more than Buzzy was, because they said Buzzy was with us.
Boy.
So that's why she's so close to us.
So you
now.
see, how we had all these people in our house. God, who belong. And my Mother's Day, and my mother got more flowers and more gifts.
Yeah.
I was like, this is great.
She was everybody's mother or grandmother.
But you were never jealous, right?
Pardon?
You were never jealous.
Oh no, I didn't care. But
That's so nice. Well, shall we move on to Dee Dee?
Sure.
Okay.
what are we doing? Hitting the whole family?
You're gonna. Yep, we got everybody down. Yeah. Rick doesn't know any of the story about when Dee Dee was a nun and like how she became a nun and how she used to visit your house. What was that?
Oh, Dee Dee, I was in St. Mary's School when she went in the convent, and it's probably the 7th grade, I imagine, or something like that. And Jeannie was a baby, because I can remember the day that they went. I was taking care of Jeannie. I had to put her on and she was going up to enter the convent, you know. And my father was I was giving him his lunch. He was going to work at noon, and he said to me, you know, he said, I never thought she was. I never knew that she was going to go in the convent. I said, Dad, that's not true. I heard Mom telling you that she'd made these plans, you know. Well, he was very upset, and he didn't want her to go. And the funny part was that he was so darn religious, and I thought he'd, you know, put her up on a pedestal for going. You know? Yeah. but anyways, she went, and I can always remember I had you in the carriage on the front porch, and I went out and I looked at Ginny, and I said, why'd they have to go today? I don't know what's the matter with them. So anyways, that was the first. She went twice, see, so I'm trying to figure out whether the first time or the second time. Okay. And she went, and then when she was sick and came home, and then she went back again. And I know the nun in St. Mary's, Sister Jimena, called me up and she said, I got some news for you. And so she took me out in the hall, you know, I didn't know what she was going to do. And she said, Dee Dee's coming home, she's sick and I got to send her home. And I said, oh God, thank God. She almost threw me down the stairs. So anyway, and she came back, and then she went she started going with Tom Gilbert, and God, he was a nice guy. I loved Tom. And he used to come to the house all the time, and they were going. And all of a sudden, she's going back in the convent. What's she going back in the convent for? She's got this real nice guy. He was related to Gilbert's, you know, Glory and them, you know. And so she was home for about a year and a half or something like that, and they thought her I think it was where the nuns used to talk him to go in places, Patty. I really do. Really? And so she went back in the convent, and that time she stayed. We all arrived on the scene. But,
wasn't he killed?
Pardon?
Wasn't
Tom was killed
in an automobile
accident? Yes, right.
And then after that, she went back.
Yeah, she went back in the convent.
So see,
yeah,
that was.
So was
well,
she?
I know. Pardon?
She was in love with him, or what?
Oh, I think so. And he was a doll. He's the Kelly girl, and he and Jay McNally, and four of them. They were coming down from the lake, and on Lake Avenue, they missed the curve and hit a tree. And I think Tom was killed, and the Kelly girl was killed. I think there were two of them killed. I think, and so it was the end of that little romance. But she used to go with Frank too.
Yeah, our uncle Frank O'Connor.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah.
And the two of them are my godparents.
Yeah. Oh, that's right too. They are, aren't they? Yeah.
Well, what influenced her to go into the convent the first time?
The nuns. She taught at St. Mary's, see, and she was with the nuns all day long, and they told her what a beautiful life it was.
So she was actually teaching there?
Oh yeah, she taught there she was teaching when I graduated from there.
Okay, so did she go to college like after high school and then teach, or?
No, but apparently it didn't have to in a grammar school at that time, Patty. I don't know, something. Because she taught there for 2 or 3 years.
And she'd gone to high school where, in Syracuse, or?
She was St. Anthony's in Syracuse.
Oh, okay.
She graduated from St. Anthony's.
And then she came back to Auburn to teach at St. Mary's?
Yeah. And she worked for Max Goldman, the attorney. And then she taught at St. Mary's. And then she went into convent after that. But and Tom, I think Tom was killed either just before or just after she went into convent. I don't know if she was, but he was from Dannemora. So
that must have been sad.
But then she stayed until 1949. Holy God.
So let me see.
all hell
Wait a minute, you know. So how many years was this like that she was in? A long.
Pardon?
So she was in for a long time.
She's in for 21 years, Ben.
21 years.
21 years. And of course, I lived on Hamilton Avenue Extension then, you know, up on the hill. And I was married and had a couple of kids at that time. She called up, Bernie called up. Bernie Corcoran. You probably don't remember her, but she's my father's relative in Rochester here. And she said, Peg, she said, I got some news for you. And I said, and she said, Dee Dee's out of the campus. I said, she's what? She's out of the campus. So she said, you know, so oh my God, I said, the things that we have to go through. So I said, oh my God, my poor father and mother are down there, and I got to go down and tell them this. And because by now we were glad she was in the campus. So anyways, I called Francie up. I said, Francie, he said, what? And I said, have you got any money? And he said, how much do you need? I said, well, I got some, but I said, I need some money to send to Rochester. Somebody's got to buy Dee Dee some clothes. And I said, Bernie said she'd go out and do the shopping for her and so on and so forth. And so anyways, Francie came down, we discussed it and sent her some money right out. And I said, well, I'll get somebody to stay with the kids and I'll come tomorrow, you know what I mean? And so, anyways, in the meantime, Marie was here with me.
No way.
Yes, Marie had left the cabin before, and she was having problems, and this is Dee Dee's close friend, you know, and so Marie was already down, and she was down to my mother's, you know.
She was staying with your mother?
Yes, and I thought, oh dear God, now I got to go down and tell them about this whole situation. So I went down there, and I said to my I said, well, I got some bad news for you. I don't know if it's bad news or good news. I said something. So anyways, I told him, and my father never said a word. He just got up and walked out in the kitchen. And of course, I didn't know what was going to happen because I know we got to get her she had to live with people that she doesn't have any clothes or she's with Marie's mother. That's who she was, I guess. Went to Bernie's first, Bernie Corcoran. And then she went with Marie's mother. So the next day, I drove up to Rochester and went to Marie's, you know. And it was a sad reunion. Oh my God! And I brought him home. We had all that weeping and carrying and gnashing of teeth and all those things. And then she was out, and then it was from bad to worse. But she stayed down here quite a while. And then nobody likes to get out and be seen after they've been in the cabin for 20 years, you know. And so it took a while to get her adjusted to living in the outside world. And then she went back to Rochester, and Aunt Marie got her a job in the travel agency, you know.
And this is Paul's Aunt Marie got her a job.
Pardon?
Paul's Aunt Marie.
Yeah, Paul's Aunt Marie.
Paul Murphy's Aunt Marie got Dee Dee a
It's
job.
Paul's Aunt Marie. She worked for travel agency in Rochester. So she got her a job, so at least she had money coming in and so on and so forth. But of course, as I say, she had gone to business school and she could run a typewriter, but I don't know how much, what she had to learn, you know, in order to be in the business. So she was up there. So after a while, then it was in '49, I think. And then my father died. You know, he was sick, and she came down a few times because you know, he had the cancer, and she used to come down like every other weekend. I used to go down the train by the prison there and meet her, and so then she stayed, and then Marie was here when her dad died. She was still down here.
Oh, she stayed in Auburn then?
She stayed in Auburn quite a while, and Marie and her sisters weren't happy about her leaving, so they made it kind of miserable up in Rochester, I guess, up to her mother's. So, anyways.
So did you have to ask Dee Dee, like, how come you got kicked out of the convent, or how come you left, or how?
I think the whole thing was Marie's influence over her, Patty.
Okay.
Marie was out, and Marie couldn't live alone, and Marie, they have all these horrible stories, you know. And I thought, oh, why don't you just leave her alone, leave her where she is, you know. But I think that's what happened. I think she I always felt that that was one reason she came out, because Marie was out. And she was at St. Augustine's at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think she kept putting the pressure on her, you know.
Yeah.
They treat you this way, they treat you that way, they do this, they do that, and how this. Well, you know how Marie was.
Yeah. So did Marie actually get kicked out, or?
Well, I don't know if she got kicked out or whether she just got to a point where she had an alternative, you know what I mean? I don't. So, and then I knew after that happened, something I knew anything was allowed to happen. She had such control over Dee Dee.
Wow. And then when did they finally get together? Like in Clifton Springs, they were together, right? Dee Dee and Marie.
Oh, well, they were here in Rochester. They had an apartment.
Yeah.
Oh, they were here in
Barrington,
Rochester for a
yeah,
long
okay.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, up off of Monroe Avenue.
Yeah.
And Marie went to work at the Senecal.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then Dee Dee had this one job with Aunt Marie.
Mm-hmm.
And they got an apartment up there.
Mm-hmm.
And because I know we used to go up to visit them.
Mm-hmm.
But Marie was a difficult person. She was to follow.
Mm-hmm. But they were always close, weren't they?
They stayed together till they died. Till she died.
Yeah. Marie used to tell a lot of stories.
Pardon?
Remember, Marie was real good to me when I came to Rochester.
Oh, I know that, right. Oh, she loved you, Pat.
Yeah.
Were you teaching then? Or?
Well, I came here to teach. After I finished the Peace Corps, I got a job in Rochester. So I came and stayed with them. They were living in Ontario, in the rectory there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then every day I'd commute into Rochester until I got an apartment.
Oh, I see.
So they were every night I'd come home and we'd have wonderful meals.
Oh, she loved to cook.
Yeah. Mhm. She was a great cook. And then sometimes
She was a very good person.
Oh, she
I'm not
was
saying
very-
that. Dee Dee wasn't
very
strong
nice.
enough for her. That was all, you know.
Yeah. And sometimes she'd give me some money to buy some wine.
Yeah.
And my
she
mother
was-
would say, "Don't you buy it." So I was like,
She was always painting pictures. Remember, Pat?
yeah. Right. And then she'd always be talking about religion because, of course, it was a rectory, and so there were always priests coming in.
You used to tell that they would have shrimp and all this good food every night. Pat said, "Wow, do they eat well?" Remember?
Delmonico steaks.
Delmonico steaks, right?
Yeah. And she used to tell me a lot of stories. And one story I was telling Rick today is that her mother, when her mother died, she was on the toilet saying her novena.
Oh.
And I remember trying so hard not to laugh. I said, "Oh, that's so sad." But inside I'm laughing, like just picturing her poor mother on the toilet dying.
I think Mrs. Rowland. I think she was a lovely person, and I think that Marie gave her a married face. You know what I mean?
Now, there's some connection with Geneva and the Rowlands and Marie.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what it is, but people that Joe knew in Geneva knew the Rowland family.
Oh.
And I'm not sure what that connection is. They lived there for a while, I think, in Geneva.
Oh, God, Pam, we had a lot of excitement in our life, didn't we?
Yeah.
All these trying to make these people happy.
Yeah.
Well, did Marie die the same way as her mother?
I don't know. How did she die?
Well, she was, Dee Dee called me up one day and she wanted me to come up. Marie hadn't been feeling good all day. She'd been sick. So I went up that night and I said, she belongs to the hospital. She doesn't belong here, you know. When the reading time, Father Gaynor was out that night, you know. And see, he and Marie didn't always see eye to eye on things.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, I mean, I won't say he wasn't good to her, but he had his idiosyncrasies too. I'd have been a priest, but
Poor Dee Dee was in the middle, both
oh
of them.
my God.
Oh, the peacemaker.
So anyway, I said, I said to Dee Dee, I'm calling the ambulance, you know. So I called the ambulance and we took her to the hospital. When they got her over there, they had a bed for her because I called ahead and they had a bed for her. But she was much worse than they thought she was going to be, so she was put into an intensive care unit. So then we knew there wasn't going to be too long, and she just lived a day, I think, and she just went there, was all. She was really sick.
Was this in Auburn? No.
In Auburn, yeah, she died
It
in
was
Mercy,
in Auburn?
yeah, right.
Okay.
And
Yeah, sure, because they were living up on the
up on
Alaska
Lake
Lake.
Avenue, up on the lake, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That must have been so hard for Dee Dee.
yeah, so then of course she really was sick, she really was, you know. But she, I think that she demanded so much of Dee Dee's time that it used to annoy the Reverend.
Oh.
Because he likes to do things too.
I was thinking about all the times when we used to have all those nuns come to your house on Hamilton.
Oh, remember that? Do you
And they-
remember that?
Yeah, and they'd hang up those outfits and
Yeah.
scare you half to death.
Because they had hair. The first time we saw them was
Sister Mary
hair.
Perpetua, remember?
Yes, yeah.
And Mary Alice, I got a picture of Mary Alice in one of their garbs out in the backyard. We dressed her up and put her under the apple tree out as a nun.
That must have been stressful, huh, when they'd come to visit and...
Oh, my poor mother was always feeding the nuns.
You had to clean the house, and everybody had to be
Yeah, everybody.
so quiet and polite.
So,
Then somebody had to take them back to the convent at St. Mary's
oh
at
yes,
night.
they had to be in by 7 o'clock or
'Cause
something,
they
so we had to
couldn't
eat at certain times.
Yeah, couldn't stay with us at night.
But when Dee Dee came home, she could just take off all that stuff and dress in regular clothes? Or
Oh
what?
no, they never
No.
take it off,
Oh
no.
my God.
Oh,
They
they-
swish
so-
around. I can
We
hear
had
them
an outfit
swishing.
of Dee Dee's that we put on Mary Alice, so she looks super nice.
Oh, geez. So she could come home to visit, but she had to go down to the convent.
Oh, everything had to be done. See, when I was married, she couldn't come home.
Oh.
See, you know, they had rules and regulations in those days. Now they drive Cadillacs.
Yeah.
Oh my.
But she taught school during those years, right, when she was in the convent?
Yes, yeah, she taught school. But,
She taught in Avon, for one. Where
right.
else did she teach? She taught in Auburn, didn't she? Or did she?
No, I don't think she
No,
taught
okay.
enough.
So did they ever send her to college? Or
Pardon?
did she go to college when she
Yes,
was in
yes, she taught up in Rochester here afterwards, you know.
She went to Nazareth, Peg.
She
said.
Yeah,
to Nazareth?
Something?
so the girls had their little thing up there.
Oh,
But,
that must have been so hard when you came to pick her up. Oh, boy. Your father went through a lot.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. You told me once a story about Aha's family, about the woman named Jenny that lived in Penfield.
yes, Aunt Jenny.
Well, what was the story, how you used to visit and all that?
Well, Aunt Jenny was my mother's aunt.
Uh-huh.
And every few years, she was really urged, she had to go and see her, you know. And she ordered this, she was married to this man, and he was, Porter, his name was. They owned a lumber business in Rochester. They had a little money. And about every couple of years, we'd go up and spend a night with her or something like this. She had a daughter, Carolyn. Carolyn lived in Rochester, and she had 2 children. And Carolyn husband was a principal of one of the Rochester schools there.
Okay.
And so she and my mother kept in touch, and Aunt May, the 3 of them used to keep in touch with each other. So isn't it funny, I have a recollection of that. The first time I went there with my mother, I went into Rochester, and they had a daughter, Betty, that was my age. So we went in, and so Carolyn said, why don't we'll Peg stay here with Betty? So they decided that was a nice idea. I almost lost my mind. I didn't sleep all night. I didn't know what homesickness was, you know, but boy, I'm telling you. So the next day my mother came, I was ready to go. But anyways, I stayed there with them, and they were very lovely people, you know, and they had a boy and a girl, Betty and Bob. And so that was our connection with Aunt Jenny. And Aunt Jenny had a pretty nice, I mean, she had a housekeeper and she had, you know, things, a beautiful house and, you know, all that. I just wonder if, I can see the house to this day, whether it's still there or not, whether they've changed it or not, because they weren't Catholics. But, and that was the time that you probably heard in Bernie and you talking, that Aunt Jenny married Croft Porter out in Scipio, and of course he was married in the Catholic Church, you know. And so that was kind of a sore spot. Everybody's, but they came back, they got over it after a while, after they liked them after a while.
And so they always were Protestants then? Huh?
They always were Protestants, yeah.
So they had one daughter, Carol.
Betty. She died.
Okay.
She died very young. She had a couple of children, I think, too. But Bob, I was telling Jeannie, Bob, I didn't know that he was down this way, but he apparently was over in Skaneateles living for a while, and he came over one day, and I know it was during Roosevelt's administration, because he got me a picture of Roosevelt, not Roosevelt, Kennedy. Kennedy. And of course he knew I was a Kennedy fan, so anyways, I don't know, the other day I was thinking, I ought to look up in the book and see if he's, and I don't think he's in Skaneateles now, I don't think he is, but that was years and years and years ago.
But this Jenny, she had 2 children?
She had 2 children, Carolyn and George. Okay. And George was kind of a, I won't say he was completely mental, but he was on the borderline, you know what I mean? Because she had somebody travel with him all the time, so. But I think that's all she had was the 2 of them.
And they owned a lumber yard.
Yes, they owned a lumber yard in Penfield. Okay. Or whether it was in Rochester or Penfield, I don't know which, but his name was Croft Porter.
Croft, isn't that an interesting name? Croft.
I don't know why I remember his name, I don't remember my own.
Boy, Peg, you're doing great. I'll tell you. All these people you remember.
So did Aha ever tell you stories about her early life?
No,
in Scipio?
Never did. I just knew she used to talk about the C.G. Meeker Company a lot. And I know when the Meekers, go away, they'd always bring her back a gift and things like that, you know. And, but I never knew much about her earlier childhood. See, that's why I had the idea she lived in Red Creek. I don't know if she even know if she did or not.
Yeah. You don't ever remember going to Scipio, too?
No. Well, I used to go to Scipio, but they were married. She was married then. Because Uncle Joe was in Scipio, and Aunt Katie, that was her aunt and uncle. And we used to go out there. But, and I always remember telling about Aunt Jenny, they always, when he was marrying a non-Catholic, you know. So.
That was pretty traumatic. Marrying a non-Catholic and marrying an Italian.
Yeah, right.
Those were bad, right?
So.
So you were more close to your father's relatives than your mother's, huh?
Oh yes, because I didn't know too many. And my Aunt May was really the only one I knew in my mother's relatives. Because her brother, I never met him. The one in New York, the one's in the picture there. He worked in New York City, and I know Aunt May and my mother went down a few times to visit him, but I never knew him.
And then he died.
He died. They went down to the funeral, I know. And so I knew my father's people because they were all here, you know what I mean? But
in the same neighborhood. But she never talked about her father?
She may have, Patty, but I'm trying to think of something. Because I didn't know him,
Right.
In fact, I was shocked to see those young pictures of her. I never saw those until that man sent them from Wisconsin or wherever he lives.
Right. And isn't it strange that they're buried at Mount Hope, or at the cemetery, St. Joseph's?
They what?
They're buried at St. Joseph's, right near everybody else. That Flynn family.
Yeah, right. That one?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's the grandparents. Yeah, the grandparents. Because the mother was buried in Syracuse, you said, right?
Who's that?
Aha's mother.
Oh, she's buried over St. Agnes's
In
over in
Syracuse.
Syracuse, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the grandparents are buried in Auburn, but the parents were buried in Syracuse.
Well, see, Aunt May had a plot there in St. Agnes's because her husband had died, you know.
Uh-huh.
And they had a plot, so that's why she was buried there. But this is,
That's interesting.
someday I was going over and look that place up. I never did.
St.
Bernie couldn't find it when he went over.
Oh. What was Aunt May's last name?
Conway.
Conway. Yeah. Conway.
And she was a seamstress, Peg. Tell them about Aunt May. She did upholstery. And
What did you say?
Aunt May, she did upholstery.
Oh, and she worked for an upholstery company.
Beautiful chairs and stuff.
Because when I was first married, that's where we bought all the furniture. Over there.
Well, that's it. Now, what happened when you got married? That you were telling us. Did we tape that last night about when Peg got married, or we were just talking about it?
I think we were talking about it.
Yeah.
I don't think we recorded it.
Yeah. We hear that your father gave you a hard time. Now, how did you meet Paul? How did that work?
Oh, one night there was a dance coming up at the high school, and Mary Alice called me, and she said that Paul's her cousin, see, and she said his girlfriend's grandmother died.
Oh.
So when I go with him, and I said, well, I really don't know him. I don't know. And I knew a lot of the kids in school that knew him, though. You know, that lived near on Grove Avenue, and of course, I lived there. And so I said, she said, well, come on down tonight, and I'll introduce you. So anyway, she lived on McMaster Street, so I went down, and that's where I met Paul. Walked home, and after that, I went with him. I didn't go with him steady though, for a long time, but I went out with him. That's where I met him anyway, through her.
And you were in school.
Pardon?
You were in school.
Hey, I was in school. I was the third year, I think, in high school, something like that.
Oh. So then after school, what did you do after high school?
I went to Syracuse. I went to secretarial school in Syracuse.
Okay. But you continued to.
Pardon?
You continued to keep in touch with Paul?
Yes, because he had a car. Somebody had a car, because I get to ride back and forth once in a while.
Oh, okay.
I used to come home on weekends. The excuse was they had the novena at St. Mary's on Sunday nights.
Oh.
that was the excuse.
That is good. Good for you.
That's Sunday night. We all went. We got all the crowd to go to the novena. So then eventually we moved up on Hamilton Avenue. We were right across the road from him because he lived right across the road on Hamilton Avenue, on Grove Avenue area.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. And so, but the third house up, so our back doors went right across from each other practically.
Oh. Wow. So then you decided to get married,
Yes.
and then you had to tell your father, right?
Well, I got a dime. I think it was on my birthday. I don't know what it was. I know because the next morning I had a show to him, you know, and he shut up like a clam. Every said a word. So I said, he said, well, he said to my mother, we might just well sell this house and get out. We don't need it. I said, oh good, now they're going to sell the house because I'm going to leave. It wasn't even our house. We were renting. So then I had showers, I had gifts all over the dining room and things and all this stuff, you know, and he never would mention it. So the morning before I was, so finally I said to my mother, well, that morning I said, what's going to happen? And she said, I don't know. I said, well, I'm going to find out. So I went out to him and he was sitting at the table eating his lunch, I remember. I said, well, you're going to give me away or aren't you? He said, what do I have to do? I said, you have to be at the church at 8 o'clock tonight. And he was there.
Oh.
Then he was the one that got all the attention. Should have left him home.
Oh, that's funny.
He always clammed up if he didn't like something, you know. He didn't talk about it. He didn't talk it out or anything like that. He just
But he liked Paul, right?
oh yeah, he liked Paul all right, but he didn't receive with open arms or anything. I found this out because You could have, your whole family, your father and your mother and everybody else could have come home and they'd have been happy. Like he didn't like Sharon and Dick moving out, or he didn't like anything like this. As long as we all stayed there, you know.
Oh,
He didn't like change.
No, he didn't like change, and he liked people in the house.
wow.
So that's
Unlike us nowadays, we
Yeah.
can't wait for the kids to
Right.
leave. Isn't that funny?
So did he ever like have to pay for the wedding or anything like that?
No, he didn't mind it. Nothing bad. He didn't worry about that. All he just worried about was you're going to leave.
Oh. See, so when you got married, did you all have to figure out who was going to pay for what or what?
No, I think that they were just figured that out themselves.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Of course, it wasn't like it is today, 35,000. They're like it
Yeah.
is now.
Yeah.
You got 2 girls.
Yikes.
So then you just got married and came home and had something at home?
Yeah, well, we went to Springside for dinner, and then we came home after that.
Oh.
So,
Oh, we had a big reception at home.
yeah, at home we had a big reception, but we had the dinner at Springside.
You had a dinner at Springside.
But no, he wasn't that petty. I don't think he even knew it cost money to get married. My mother worried about all the bills in the house. He never ever worried about them.
Oh, wow.
I can remember him bringing his paycheck home every week, and he'd put the money in the cupboard,
Yeah.
whatever it was.
You know,
and
this
she'd
is-
take the money and pay the bills.
I think that now about things I read in the paper, all my life I remember his revolver on the dresser. No one ever touched that revolver. It was always loaded too, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And
really?
he'd come home at night, and take out the thing and put it on his dresser. And I thought to myself, well, what was the big deal? I didn't even know. I couldn't have shot it probably anyways, but it was there,
Isn't that interesting?
Wow. You
Never
don't think
nobody
about
ever,
that.
ever
Yeah.
touched it. It was always laid right. I could see it laying right there on the dresser now.
Wow.
And but as they say, it was. I don't think he ever shot it either. Come to think about it.
Yeah.
And another thing, and this is Richard the First again, the policeman. He would walk his beat,
Uh-huh.
and his feet would be so sore. He had a big bunion.
Yes,
on
he had
his
a bunion,
foot.
didn't he?
And he'd come in the house, remember, go out in the kitchen, he'd take his shoes off,
Uh-huh.
and his feet would be so...
Yeah, they walked the
So-
beat all the time. They didn't
He'd
have any
walk
cars or
miles
anything.
and miles.
And up on Wasco Street, there was a place called Turn Hall, and it was sort of like a nightclub,
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember this man that lived up there told me one time, he didn't know he was my father, of course, and he said, this policeman, he picks up the guys and puts them in the doorway and closes the door so nobody will find them.
Oh.
Because they pick them up, they found them drinking on the streets,
Uh-huh.
And so, never, I don't think I've ever arrested anybody. I don't remember.
Wow.
But
But when he died, they all came to his funeral, right? A lot of
boy,
those poor people.
they came to his funeral, all right, I tell him. You said the colored people,
Yeah,
was
the
it?
colored
They
people.
came.
Yeah, he was really well thought of.
What was it like having a father who's a police officer as you were growing up? Was that ever an issue for you and your friends?
No,
or
it really wasn't. In fact, I don't think the majority of people knew that I had a father that was a police officer. You know what I mean, Rick? And they, as I say, they walked the beat. Now you never find a policeman in a corner in Auburn. Now you never couldn't find one if you wanted one. They don't walk the beat anymore. They don't even walk down Genesee Street. but it never bothered us, because we. But I always, when I think of people saying about the children picking up guns and things like that, and I thought, they always had a gun there, I never remember.
Yeah. Oh,
But
wow.
Peg, tell about the time that Grandma gave Dad a ticket for parking his car. Do you remember that? Dad had his car parked on Genesee Street, and Grandma gave him a
yeah,
ticket.
you didn't know it was a car.
Yeah, and Dad was so mad. What was that all about?
I don't remember that, Jean.
Oh, yeah.
Now when I went to East High
Uh-huh.
and I took Latin from Miss Jameson, I remember the first class when she was looking over the roster of kids in the class, and she said, now Patricia, are you related to Peg and Francis Corcoran?
Did she really?
Yeah. And they were the very best Latin students that I ever had.
Oh gosh, she must have had a good day.
Yeah. So of course, and we always loved Miss Jameson. She was
I always liked her,
legend.
yes.
Yeah. So it looks like you two made quite an impression
Oh,
when you went to school.
Well, I after one day C.L. Williams was American history, you know, and when you went into this class the first day, he lined you up along, you know, and then they give you a test, and then he'd arrange you in the room according to the test. And Francie always got 100 in American history. I probably got 75. I don't know what I got. But I know one day he said, "Sit down to me," and he'd sit there, and he always made these stupid remarks, you know. And he said, "You remember?" And I'd gone from the back seat where the good one up halfway up the aisle, you know. And he said, "Are you any relation to that boy that used to sit in that seat?" I know he was talking about Francis. I said, "Yes, I guess I am." Or something. I didn't care much about his American history. Funny part was I liked American history too, but that wasn't a good day. And but I laughed because he's embarrassed, you know, if he thought that you were fooling around.
Wow. He's the one that wrote the textbooks, huh?
Yes, right.
He was pretty famous. Right.
Yes, he used to be. But he was always funny about seating your card to your mark. You knew where you were, or he'd seat you that way.
Wow.
And of course, being Francie's sister, he put me in the back. I didn't belong in the back.
So Francie was like one of the best students?
Oh, Francie was a good student, very good student.
And how about you? You were number
Well,
one?
I did all right. Well, I like Latin, so that's probably why she said.
Right.
I took 4 years of Latin. I liked it.
Jeez.
And so, but Francie was a good student.
So what were you saying? You were valedictorian or something or other? What?
It's 8th grade.
Of 8th grade, just like Jeannie.
Yeah, like Jeannie. Like Jeannie and your mother. We all were valedictorians.
We girls did well.
Those were the days.
But when you finished high school, you never thought about going to college or anything, right?
Yes, but there really wasn't. There was a bad time period, you know. It's the middle of the Depression, you know. And there wasn't much money around. I didn't want them to all have a heart attack. I said, my aunt May wanted me to go down to Syracuse. I lived with her for a year, see, when I went to Syracuse, when I went to school over there. And she said she wanted me to go to university and take up pharmacy. And I said, "Aunt May, girls don't take up pharmacy."
Oh.
And I said, when I think of it now, she was far ahead of her years.
Boy,
That's a boy's job.
Oh, those are good memories.
Oh, they are when you stop and think of it.
Yeah.
Of course, Dee graduated from Syracuse, so we all had to go over there to St. Anthony's to get her out of high school.
Yeah. How come she ended up going over there? Didn't that cost a lot of money?
Well, yes, it cost some money, but I mean, things weren't too great in our schools at that particular time, I think, so. And Ann was going there too, her cousin, you know, Ann Conway. And so it was a boarding school, like, you know, so they stayed over there.
Wow.
But I don't think they could have done just as well now.
Wow. So what happened to our dad in school?
Well, when he got up to third year, he didn't want to go any farther, apparently. That was it. Then he went to business school.
Oh.
He and Dee Dee. They went together.
Oh, they did.
I got pictures of them somewhere graduating from business school.
Wow.
And of course, he played all his tricks in business school, like feeding and gum to people that were always, you know.
He would give up.
They were always begging gum, you know, and wanting things. Oh, God, I'm telling you.
I wonder why he wanted to go to business school. He didn't like going to high school.
I don't know. I never could realize just what he did like, because he never really said. But well, I think it was a case of where you get out of school, you got to go to school someplace, and that's probably why he ended up going to business school, I imagine.
Yeah.
And of course, they got familiar with all the people because business school was much smaller than high school was, you know. And but I know he wasn't an avid college student. I don't think he cared anything about going, you know. That's like telling Jeannie, you know, $4,000, you know, to pick up a potato.
Yeah. That's interesting. Because Dee Dee was a good student too.
Yeah, Dee Dee was a good student, but Dee Dee had to study, you know. And the rest of us didn't study as much as we could have.
Oh, that's great. Well, one story that I don't think a lot of people have heard is the story of what happened to Bernie when Bernie got sick.
Oh, Bernie, God love Bernie. And it was funny. He was 11 months old, and he was in over in Mercy. He got encephalitis. And at a particular time, there was another little boy from Scipio, about his age, that about a year old. They had encephalitis too. So these two kids are battling for their life, you know. And so we used to go over every day, and Virginia would go over, and Francie would go at night, and my mother and I would go in the afternoon or something. And so they didn't give us too much hope that he was going to make it. And I know the nun, you know, said one morning, well, he made another night, but I don't know how many more he's going to. So I had this relic that Maria had given me, you know, Mother Kader. She was a cynical nun. And so I went over that afternoon, and I said, Ginny was there, and I said, no, I don't know how, because you was non-Catholic at that time, I think. I don't know if she turned yet or not. And I said, I don't know how you feel about this, but I said, I got this relic. I could put it on him if it's agreeable to you, but I don't want to. He said, don't do anything. I put the relic on him, you know. Francie come home that night, and my mother was up there, and he was crying his eyes out because he thought he was going to die. And anyways, Ginny went over the next morning, the baby's sitting up in the crib.
See?
And Bernie's never gotten over it. And so the other day I was cleaning out a drawer, and I came across the novenas, the Mother Kader and the relic, you know. Not the relic I had for him, but another relic. And so I gave it to him the other day, and he was so delighted. He said, I've often wondered, you know, I want to know something about this person, you know. And I said, well, I think we should have told somebody about it. That's what I think we should have done at the time. Because it was like a miracle, you know. And from then on, he began to improve, and they brought him home.
Wow.
But,
now, what was her name again, that saint?
Mother Kader.
Kader?
Yes, Couteder. She had, but this, there were, and then the funny part was I loaned a relic to somebody. They wanted it, and I loaned it and never got it back. But I've got, I got the other relic, another relic, and so I gave it to him when he was over, and he said, well, you know, my mother had one little thing, but she didn't have the story of it, so this told about who she was and why she, you know. But Marie used to, you know, we used to buy things that cynical, you know. And
so that was really a miracle.
It really was a miracle. It was a miracle.
Because he was supposed to die, huh?
Well, that's what the nun told me, wasn't she? I don't think he's going to make it. The other little boy did die, but he made it. And so it was, you know, it was one of those ticklish things. It's just, you don't know, you can go one way or the other.
Oh my God.
And he really never was left with anything, you know, I mean, anything that really handicapped him.
Because he could have been really.
It could have been, yes, right,
yeah,
right.
with all that brain trauma.
So when he was over, because I meant to ask him the other night how he made out reading.
That's a miracle.
He's such a good kid, Bernie.
Because his mother was always worried that maybe he would have some.
Yes, oh yeah, right. And then when he went to school and all that business, you know, and frankly, he's a brain, I think. I mean, he does more things that you know,
Yeah.
that the normal person doesn't do, you know.
Yeah.
So
Boy, that's a great story.
So
Bernie and the miracle, huh?
yeah, the miracle, right?
Had he heard that story from his mother, or did you tell him that story about the relic?
His mother, I think, probably told him about it. Because he said to me, my mother had something, but he said, I didn't know what it was all about, you know. So he said, I just often wondered. And just by accident, I come across, my God, here's the book on her, you know what I mean? So I gave it to him. I said, take this thing home and read it.
Oh
So-
my goodness. That's some story
That's
you never
neat.
heard, isn't it?
That's a neat story.